Hello everyone, how are you? Hope you are staying safe. My name is Ishan and I would like to welcome you for lecture 4. In this particular lecture, I will be discussing and analyzing the effect of the global COVID-19 pandemic and the response of this pandemic in India, which was a lockdown, on the Indian economy. So we will look at the different sectors that are affected and how this lockdown due to the pandemic has affected the Indian economy as a whole. So let us begin our presentation and lecture. This lecture is a part of a 19-part lecture series on the COVID-19 response and recovery, a comparative study between Australia and India. One of the significant economic impacts of COVID-19 could be on the global monetary poverty through contractions in per capita household income or consumption. COVID-19 poses a real challenge to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal of ending poverty by 2030 because global poverty could increase for the first time since 1990. And depending on the poverty line, such increase could represent a reversal of approximately a decade in the world's progress in reducing poverty. It is seen in this graph how from February to April 2020, the fall in income is increasing and rise in income is decreasing significantly. As of April 2020, more than 43% people in India have seen a decrease in their incomes. The unemployment rate in India began to rise very sharply from 29th March and has continued to grow. The unemployment rate is the number of unemployed people divided by the labor force. The labor force is the sum of unemployed and employed people. Now, this does not include people who are retired, underage, disabled, hospitalized, or not willing to work. India's economic growth was peaking in 2009 and 2010, but then decreased in 2011. Then it increased again in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Then it began decreasing again. And since then, this decrease has continued right into the pandemic crisis. The Indian economy expanded 3.1% year on year in the first quarter of 2020, beating market forecast of a 2.1% increase. Still, it is the slowest GDP growth since quarterly data became available in 2004, as the country imposed a nationwide lockdown from March 24th, aiming to contain the spread of the coronavirus. Manufacturing went down 1.4%, the third straight quarter of contraction, and construction declined a further 2.2%. A slowdown was also seen in financial, real estate and professional services, in trade, hotels, and transport. While most sectors are negatively affected by the lockdown in India, some have been affected more than the others. Financial, real estate services, and professional services have been affected the most. Some other affected industries, such as manufacturing, were already declining prior to the pandemic. Like any other country, India's trade has been affected. The imports by India, that is, the incoming products and services, have decreased. The worst affected are imports of pearls, semi-precious and precious stones, electrical and non-electrical machinery, electronic goods, coal, and petroleum. Now, similar to the imports, exports from India have also been affected. The worst affected are oil, meat, engineering goods, gems, leather, plastic, garments, tea, cereals, cotton, petroleum, and rice. A modest partial lockdown in India would have cost the country $12.5 billion. A strict partial lockdown would have cost India $17.6 billion. whereas a full lockdown, as it is seen currently, would cost Indian economy $26 billion. However, we must remember for a country as densely populated as India, while a modest partial lockdown would cost the economy less than a strict lockdown, the cost to human lives would have been unprecedented. Furthermore, the country is already facing a collapse in the healthcare system, which is neglected and unable to cope up with the COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 patients despite a strict lockdown. It is unimaginable what the situation could have been if the herd immunity strategy was applied in India. We have seen that apparel and textile sector is affected and will continue to be affected due to the disruption in labor supply, due to the disruption in raw material availability, due to the working capital constraints and restricted demand due to limited movement of people and their purchasing ability. With this textile and apparel sector, we will now continue to look at other sectors that are adversely affected as well. The auto sector, which includes automobiles and auto parts, will continue to face a serious challenge on account of lack of demand, global recession, and falling income levels. Aviation and tourism is one sector which has the highest probability of undergoing a loss, and without direct government intervention, in the next 12 months, it is highly unlikely that people will travel for leisure apart from very essential travel. This could pose a grave risk to the aviation and tourism industry. Shipping and non-food retail chains and global shipping businesses will find this 12-month period very challenging as well. This includes retail for clothes, books, homeware such as cutlery, mattresses, pillows, cushion covers, home decor, fashion accessories like perfumes, clothes, jewelry, hairbands, makeup, all of these would be affected. Shipping sector will be affected as well, as we have seen how imports and exports in India are being affected. The building and construction sector will also struggle due to the uniqueness of its operations and financing. The businesses here are generally leveraged and hence will face the dual challenges of high interest payments and lack of sales. Online hotel and ticket bookings will be affected as people are under lockdown and not allowed to leave their homes. Some hotels are converted into quarantine zones, will not be making the same commercial revenue and would see a decreased demand even after the end of the lockdown, as people would be skeptical to stay in those hotels which were former quarantine zones. The e-commerce businesses such as online shopping for non-essential items would also see a loss, as they have already seen a fall in their revenues by 8%. Online taxi services and rideshare companies like Ola, Uber will see a fall in the demand of their services by non-essential consumers. The same goes for food delivery services. On the contrary, some online businesses will benefit the situation. Online streaming such as Amazon Prime, Netflix have already seen an increase in their subscription in millions. Gaming apps, online paid gaming, and video content platforms such as YouTube and TikTok have seen a boost in usage. The same is true for TV channels and news media who have seen a rapid boost in their ratings through viewership. Cloud computing services have also seen a boost in usage. New corporate subscriptions, however, are the ones that are contributing to this boost. Unfortunately, the ones that are benefiting are mainly non-Indian multinational companies, as Indian IT companies are failing to provide their own product as a rival to multinational products. Now, lastly, the electronic payment system will definitely have benefited due to the encouragement of electronic payments for permitted online shopping only. Online groceries have also seen a benefit and also seen an increase in the profit. The benefit in this sector is similar to the benefit seen by the EdTech and online education system, because many students are now doing their studies, visiting their classes virtually and online. Many lectures in universities and schools are being delivered online for those institutions which are still operating. Such online platforms have seen a boost in their revenue. Back to groceries, the two main groceries or online groceries that are benefiting are the largest ones in India, and they are Grofers and Big Basket. The increased revenues for these platforms are mainly seen, however, in the north of India. These particular online grocery services, which are the biggest in India, haven't seen a huge increase in the state of Maharashtra or other parts of India. FMCG, or fast-moving consumer goods and retail, which are non-durable household goods such as packaged food, beverages, toiletries, over-the-counter drugs, and other consumables, are seen to survive the lockdown. With continued fear, food-based retail chains and companies catering to low-ticket consumption demand will emerge as clear winners. Specialty chemical firms will be benefiting the situation as well. These companies are dealing in chemicals will see a jump due to increased demand for disinfectants, drugs, and medicines. By drugs, I don't mean recreational drugs or illegal drugs. I literally mean the medicinal drugs. Pharmaceutical firms are also set to see a growth in the near term, especially the best five pharma companies in India, which are Sun Pharma, Lupin, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Cipla, and Aurobindo Pharma Limited. These are seen to see a boost in the near future and also at present. I would now like to focus a little bit on the tea industry in India, which is pretty significant. India is the second largest producer of tea in the world, and this industry is seen to be affected adversely in the given situation. Indian tea contributes 31% of the global tea production. India exports tea varieties to around 140 countries across the world. According to the Tea Export Report of India, in the year 2017 and 18, tea exports were valued at 5,905 crore and 6,241 crore in the following year. Iran and Russia are the top export destinations for India, and they together constitute 36% of India's total export market. The other major tea export destinations are the Commonwealth of Independent States countries, such as United States, Germany, United Kingdom, UAE, Egypt, Pakistan, and China. The economy of North Bengal and Upper Assam is clearly reliant on tea. Assam contributes half of the country's total tea production, which is 1,300 million kg. Another 25% comes from West Bengal. According to NETA, Assam by itself will lose around 3,000 crore, which is nearly 25% of annual output amidst the lockdown. UPASI estimated that the tea gardens in South India will lose around 23 million kg. The world-famous Darjeeling tea has already lost its first flush of March, and that production's gone. And the second flush that's coming in May is also adversely affected. UPASI, which is a tea research foundation, and NETA, which is the Northeastern Tea Association, are predicting that Darjeeling tea has already lost its first flush in March. And now similarly, the statistics that they're showing shows that more than 11 million people are directly or indirectly involved in tea production activities have lost their livelihood. This is around 50% among those who are women who come from weaker sections of the society. More than that, small tea gardens and growers contribute almost 51% of the country's total tea production. The breakdown of global supply chains and the downturn in domestic demand will leave deep scars on the livelihoods of these millions of laborers and tea growers, and a majority of them again being women. I hope this lecture shed light based on numbers as to how our Indian economy is affected due to the lockdown and the global pandemic situation. Now, during this lecture, I'm pretty sure many were thinking that I could have covered a few more topics that are relevant, or maybe a few more topics may have emerged for discussion from this particular lecture. Interestingly, those topics will be covered in the 19-part series. Going ahead, I'm also going to have a lecture that's focusing on the healthcare system in India, because today we briefly touched on a few points about the healthcare system. I'll also be talking about India's trade with rest of the world, which once again was briefly spoken about today when we referred to the imports and the exports. And lastly, I will be having a lecture purely dedicated to the stimulus package in India, because Indian stimulus package needs a discussion. We need to see how much money has been allocated by the government for overcoming the issues that I just mentioned today. So many more interesting lectures lined up. I hope you enjoy them. Feel free to share your ideas, thoughts, and comments with me. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next lecture. So thank you very much.